Cale Varen sat alone in the cockpit of his small transport ship, staring out at the endless stretch of stars. His reputation had been shattered years ago during the infamous Drexus mission, and now he was nothing more than an outcast. Former allies refused to speak to him, trade guilds ignored his requests, and even bounty hunters treated him with cautious disdain. Cale didn't care about most of that anymore. He had long learned that the galaxy remembered failures longer than victories. He sighed and adjusted the worn controls of his ship, a flicker of the old pride that once carried him through interstellar wars still lingering in his chest. He had been wandering the edge of charted space for weeks, searching for jobs, supplies, or even a hint of opportunity to rebuild his life. That's when he received a tip. A remote galactic scrapyard, abandoned for decades, was rumored to hold ships from countless species, many of them discarded for being broken or too old. Some said that even the most dangerous ships had been dumped there after wars or failed experiments. The coordinates were crude, almost like a rough sketch. Cale frowned. Could be nothing, he muttered, or a trap. Still, he was running low on credits and options. With a shrug, he set his ship on autopilot and made the long jump toward the scrapyard. When he arrived, the sight took his breath away. Massive hulks of starships floated or rested in silent heaps, some broken in half, others scorched from battles long forgotten. The scrapyard was alive in its own strange way. The faint hum of broken engines, the occasional spark from damaged reactors, and the glow of alien inscriptions flickering on cracked hulls. Cale felt a thrill he hadn't felt in years. Here, in this graveyard of machines, he was reminded of why he had loved piloting so much. Cale began walking between the giant wrecks, scanning for anything that might be useful. His gaze fell on a massive vessel, half buried in debris, its hull scarred and scratched but still gleaming faintly under the distant suns. There was something unusual about it. Unlike the other ships, it seemed to watch him, or so his instincts whispered. Its design was unlike any he had ever seen, sleek yet armored, alien yet almost organic in shape. The markings on the hull weren't just decorations, they pulsed faintly like a heartbeat. A voice crackled in his comms. "You shouldn't be here," it said. Cale jumped hand on his blaster. No one was visible, just the empty scrapyard. "Whose?" He stopped, realizing the voice was coming from the ship itself. It was weak, barely a whisper, but distinct. "You human," Cale froze. His heart pounded. Ships didn't talk. Never. And yet the words lingered in the air like an echo. He shook his head. "Probably a security system glitch," he muttered, though his voice betrayed a hint of awe. He circled the ship, inspecting it. Panels were damaged, hull plates were cracked, and wiring hung like vines in the wreckage. Whoever had owned it before had clearly given up. Cale's mind raced. This ship could be worth a fortune if he could repair it. But it wasn't just that, it felt alive. He could feel it in the hum of its core, in the subtle vibrations running along the hull. Cale had always known when a ship was special. This one was different. Cale made a decision. He contacted the scrapyard administrator through a broken comm channel. The administrator's response was terse and uninterested. "That ship, nobody wants it, take it. Cost is nothing, we'll scrap it if you don't." "Perfect," Cale said, a small smile forming on his face. He had nothing to lose. The next hours were a flurry of activity. Cale managed to tow the ship into a safer docking bay in the scrapyard using his small transport. As he worked, he noticed the ship resisting subtly, shifting slightly on its own, blocking some of his attempts to connect systems. Cale frowned, intrigued. It was as if the vessel was aware of him. By the time he finished securing the ship, dusk had fallen over the scrapyard. The stars began to shine brighter, and Cale leaned against the hull of the alien vessel. "Well, old girl," he said, half joking. "We'll see if you're as stubborn as I think you are." Then, a faint glow emanated from the ship's core. Panels shifted slightly, almost as if it was breathing. Cale stepped back. "Okay, that's new." He reached for the controls again, intending to run a quick diagnostic. As soon as he touched the console, a surge of energy shot through the ship. Lights flickered, systems whirred, and a soft, melodic voice filled the bay. "You do not belong," it said. The voice was neither threatening nor gentle, it was curious, almost cautious. Kale swallowed hard. I bought you," he said. "I'm your pilot now if you'll have me." There was a pause, and then the voice replied, "I do not obey." Kale laughed nervously. "Well, I guess we're going to have to negotiate then." He spent the next several hours trying to access the ship systems. Every attempt he made was met with subtle resistance. Doors that should have opened refused. Navigation systems locked him out. Engines sparked but did not ignite. Yet each time he struggled, he felt a connection growing, like the ship was testing him, learning him, understanding him. Kale realized that this was not just a machine. It was alive, and it had a mind of its own. As night fell fully over the scrapyard, Kale sat on the ground, leaning against the hull. The stars above were bright and distant, but here, among the wreckage, he felt a strange sense of possibility. He had nothing, no allies, no reputation, but he had this ship and perhaps a chance to prove himself once more. Somewhere deep inside, Kale knew that this was only the beginning. The ship was alive, defiant, and unpredictable, and so was he. Together they would face challenges that neither of them could yet imagine. For now, though, Kale allowed himself to smile, a rare and genuine smile. He had taken a gamble, and for the first time in years, he felt the thrill of hope. The ship pulsed softly, almost imperceptibly, as if responding to his thoughts. It was silent now, but Kale knew it was listening, waiting, judging. And maybe, just maybe, it had decided that this human was worth watching. The scrapyard was silent now, except for the faint hum of broken engines and the soft pulse of the alien ship Kale had purchased. Its lights flickered like distant stars, and Kale could swear he felt it watching him even from the inside of its hull. He had spent the night studying it from outside, trying to figure out where to even begin. But no human manual existed for this vessel. It was older than any ship he had ever encountered, alien in every sense, yet eerily familiar in some way. Kale stepped into the cockpit for the first time. The interior was unlike any human ship. The walls seemed to breathe with soft light patterns, almost like veins of energy running through living tissue. The seats adjusted themselves as he approached, almost as if the ship recognized him. Kale frowned. "Okay, that's new." He tried to access the navigation system. Nothing, the screens glowed, symbols shifted and danced, but no commands responded. Then a low, melodic voice echoed through the cockpit. "You attempt control." Kale froze. "Yeah, I guess I do," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "But I just want to see if you're working." The ship's response was a long, deliberate pause. "I do not obey," Kale chuckled nervously. "All right, fair enough, but if we're going to get anywhere, we need to cooperate." The ship remained silent, though subtle vibrations ran through the hull, like a heartbeat speeding at his words. Kale realized this wasn't just a vessel. It was alive, aware, and very, very stubborn. He had never faced anything like this in his years as a pilot. He had battled alien warships, rogue AI, and even cosmic storms that could tear a ship apart, but nothing like this. Kale spent hours running diagnostics, connecting cables, and attempting every protocol he could think of. Every time he tried to power a system, the ship resisted. Engines would surge but not ignite, doors would lock, screens would flicker, and sometimes a small section of the hull would shift or pulse unexpectedly. Kale began to suspect that it wasn't just resisting him, it was testing him. He paused and leaned back in the chair, staring at the flickering lights. "Why are you doing this?" he whispered. The cockpit was silent except for the low hum of energy, and then faintly, "Why are you human?" Kale's eyes widened. "That's a new question." He leaned forward. "Why do you care?" "Human bring destruction and creation," the voice replied. Its tone was neither angry nor friendly but curious, almost like a student asking a difficult question. Kale thought about it. He had been on both sides of that truth. Humans were reckless, stubborn, sometimes cruel, but also clever, resilient, and unpredictable. "Yeah," he said slowly, "that's us. Messy maybe, but we get things done." The ship pulsed, a faint glow expanding across the walls. Kale took it as a sign of recognition, or perhaps amusement. Over the next few days, Kale and the ship began a strange dance of negotiation. He would attempt to activate a system. It would resist. He would find another approach. It would respond in kind. Sometimes he would speak to it. Sometimes he would sit quietly, letting it sense him, waiting for its reaction. Slowly, he realized that he needed patience more than skill, observation more than force. One evening, while working on the energy core, the ship spoke again. "You persistent like others," Kale wiped sweat from his brow. "Like others. Human persistent," the ship clarified. "You different," Kale paused. No one had called him different in years, not since his failure on the Drexus mission. "I'm trying," he admitted quietly. "I don't want to fight you. I want to understand you." Another long pause. Then a subtle vibration ran through the hull, and the cockpit lights dimmed and brightened in a slow, rhythmic pattern. Kale interpreted it as a yes. Over the next week, Kale learned the vessel's personality in pieces. It was cautious, defiant, curious, and deeply distrustful of humans. It would refuse commands, close sections of the ship, or reroute systems in ways that made no sense at first. But if Kale observed carefully, if he thought creatively, he could coax it into cooperation. It was unlike any ship he had ever piloted, a living puzzle. Kale began to talk to it more, giving it a name in his mind, Vera. He didn't speak the name aloud at first. He wasn't sure if it would understand. But Vera seemed to respond to the concept of identity, to the recognition that it was unique. Over time, he noticed small signs of acknowledgement. A system that had refused to start before now hummed softly at his touch. Lights pulsed rhythmically when he spoke, and sometimes a panel would shift, revealing previously hidden mechanisms. Then came the first real test. Kale attempted to start the ship's engines fully, preparing to take it for a short flight within the scrapyard's atmosphere. Vera resisted immediately. Lights flashed, screens blinked warnings, and the engines roared then cut out. Kale's frustration boiled over. "Why are you doing this?" he shouted. "Because I do not trust," the voice replied. Kale exhaled slowly, realizing the truth. It wasn't defiant for the sake of being difficult. It had a mind, memories, and a will. Trust had to be earned. He lowered his hands, leaned back, and spoke calmly. "I get it. You don't trust me. I'd feel the same way if I were in your place." Another long pause, then the lights in the cockpit shifted again, dimming softly. Kale interpreted it as listening, patience again. He spent the next few hours working beside the ship rather than on it, repairing minor circuits, cleaning sensors, and speaking softly. Slowly, Vera allowed him to make minor adjustments without interference. By the end of the week, Kale realized something extraordinary. The ship was not just alive, it was learning him. It began to anticipate his movements in small ways, activating systems he frequently used, shifting seats to his preferred positions, even blocking dangerous attempts in advance. It was intelligent, reactive, and growing increasingly connected to him. Kale leaned back in the pilot chair one night, staring at the soft glow of the cockpit. "You're amazing," he said quietly, almost to himself. "I've never met anything like you." A soft vibration pulsed through the hull, almost like a nod. "You human, surprising," Vera's voice said. Kale smiled, feeling a spark of pride he hadn't felt in years. He had not only survived his fall from grace but found something extraordinary in the ruins. The galaxy might have rejected him, but here, among the stars and wreckage, he was learning something invaluable. Humans were capable of connecting, understanding, and earning trust, even from the most defiant beings. And yet, as Kale gazed out at the endless stars, he knew this was only the beginning. Vera was alive, intelligent, and defiant, and there were forces in the galaxy that would not hesitate to destroy her or him if given the chance. He had to prove more than patience and skill, he had to prove humanity itself. Kale ran a final check of Vera's systems, noting subtle signs of cooperation. "Tomorrow," he whispered, "we'll take you for a real flight, just a test, see how it feels to be free again." The ship pulsed softly in response. "Free." "Yes," Kale said, smiling. "Freedom is not given, it's earned, and we'll earn it together." Vera pulsed again, slower this time, almost contemplatively. Kale felt a sense of connection unlike anything he had ever known. This was no longer just a ship. It was a partner, a living being that would judge him, challenge him, and perhaps, in time, trust him fully. As the scrapyard fell silent and the stars glittered above, Kale allowed himself a rare feeling: hope. For the first time since his disgrace, he didn't feel like an outcast. He felt like a pilot again, and not just a pilot, but a pioneer standing at the edge of something extraordinary. Tomorrow, the real challenge would begin. Kale had been working with Vera for weeks now. The bond between the ex-human pilot and the alien ship was growing, though slowly. He had learned to read her subtle signals, the flicker of a light, the hum of a panel, even the faint vibrations through the hull. Vera, in turn, seemed to anticipate his movements more accurately, sometimes even completing minor tasks on her own. Yet, the galaxy outside the scrapyard was dangerous. Kale knew that Vera's uniqueness would attract unwanted attention, and sooner or later trouble would find them. It came sooner than expected. Kale was running final system checks, preparing for a test flight beyond the scrapyard, when the sensors flickered. A fleet of sleek alien ships appeared on the radar. They were Zarathi warships, known throughout this region of space for their ruthlessness and their goal of claiming advanced technology, often by force. The Zarathi had been active recently, raiding scrapyards, capturing or destroying any alien vessels that seemed valuable, and now they were heading straight toward Kale and Vera. "Vera," Kale said, his hands steady on the controls. "We have company, big company." The ship pulsed softly, threat approaching defensive measures. "Yes," Kale replied, "but listen, they're stronger than us. We can't fight them head-on, we need to be smarter." Vera's lights flickered rapidly. Kale could feel the ship's tension, almost like fear, but not the kind that paralyzed. The ship was alive, yes, but she trusted Kale enough to follow his lead. That trust had been earned in countless hours of patience, conversation, and careful coaxing. Kale quickly activated hidden panels, rerouting energy from non-essential systems to shields and propulsion. Vera responded, adapting her shape slightly to reduce the ship's radar signature. "We'll need to be clever," Kale whispered. "They think humans are predictable. Let's prove them wrong." As the first Zarathi scout approached, Kale maneuvered Vera through the debris-filled space of the scrapyard. The alien ships were fast and precise, but Kale knew every corner, every wreck, every path through the junk. Using human ingenuity, he guided Vera through narrow passages, forcing the scouts to follow or risk collisions. The first attack came. Plasma blasts streaked across the debris field, and Kale felt Vera shudder under the impact. "Hold together," he muttered. "We're not done yet." Vera responded with subtle energy pulses from her hull, deflecting some of the shots and sending a warning jolt through the attacking ship. The Zarathi were confused. Their sensors struggled to interpret a living, reactive ship. Kale realized this was their advantage. Vera was alive, and she could adapt in real time, unlike any automated system the Zarathi had encountered. Using the wreckage as cover, Kale began a daring maneuver. He guided Vera to circle a massive, half-destroyed warship. The Zarathi pursued, confident in their numbers. Kale calculated every movement carefully, using the environment to force collisions between enemy ships and debris. Sparks and hull fragments filled the void as the attackers struggled to keep formation. "Impressive," Vera's voice echoed softly. "You think differently," Kale smiled. "Humans survive because we think differently. We improvise. And you, my friend, are going to help me show them just how unpredictable we can be." They continued the dance through the scrapyard, dodging attacks and luring Zarathi ships into traps. Kale discovered that Vera had hidden systems he hadn't fully explored: small plasma emitters, adaptive shields, and even an energy pulse that could disable electronic systems temporarily. Each time he discovered a new function, he worked with the ship, rather than trying to force it, earning its cooperation. Suddenly, one of the lead Zarathi ships broke formation and launched a focused attack. A plasma beam tore through the hull near the engineering bay. Alarms blared and Kale felt Vera tense under the impact. "Status?" he asked. "Critical but repairable," the ship replied. Kale didn't hesitate. Using tools he carried and quick improvisation, he repaired the damage mid-flight, rerouting energy to stabilize the hull. Vera responded with a soft pulse, acknowledging the repair. The other Zarathi ships seemed hesitant now. A living ship that could repair itself mid-battle, that was unheard of. Kale realized the moment of opportunity had come. He activated Vera's hidden systems fully, a move he had been preparing for days. Energy surged through the ship, lights flashing brilliantly across the hull. The pulse disrupted the enemy ship's sensors, temporarily blinding them. Kale took a deep breath and executed a bold maneuver. He guided Vera straight toward the center of the scrapyard, using its massive debris piles to shield them from the Zarathi's heavy fire. The attack was chaotic, brilliant, and dangerous. Kale had to trust Vera completely, and she trusted him in return. They moved as one, a pilot and a living ship, a combination the galaxy had not anticipated. By the end of the skirmish, the Zarathi fleet had been forced to retreat. Some ships were damaged, others destroyed, and Kale and Vera remained unscathed, though the cockpit smelled of burnt circuits and adrenaline. Kale laughed, a genuine sound of relief and triumph. "We did it, Vera. You and me, we're unstoppable when we work together." The ship pulsed softly, almost like a laugh in response. "Unpredictable like human," she said. Kale grinned. "Exactly. Unpredictable. That's our strength." In the aftermath, Kale reflected on what had happened. Humanity had been underestimated across the galaxy for centuries. Many species saw humans as weak, reckless, or foolish. Yet here they were, outnumbered, outgunned, and facing a fleet of merciless enemies. And they had survived, not through brute force alone, but through creativity, adaptability, and courage. Vera, too, had changed. The battle had earned her trust in Kale. She responded faster to his commands, anticipated his intentions, and even initiated minor maneuvers on her own. Kale realized that this partnership was no longer one-sided. They were a team, a living, thinking team. Over the next few days, Kale continued to explore Vera's capabilities. They tested the ship's systems, discovering hidden defensive mechanisms, propulsion enhancements, and even sections of the ship that seemed designed for stealth and intelligence gathering. Kale marveled at the alien engineering and thought of the countless civilizations that had failed to master such a vessel. But Kale also knew danger was far from over. The Zarathi would not forget this defeat. Other species, curious or envious, might seek the ship as well. And Vera's true potential was still largely untapped. Kale had to prepare, not just for survival, but for the chance to prove that humans were capable of greatness, even in the eyes of the galaxy. That night, as Kale floated in the sleeping quarters, he spoke to the ship quietly. "You know, Vera, humans aren't perfect. We make mistakes, we fail, we fall, but we also rise. We create, we protect, and sometimes we surprise the universe." The ship pulsed in response. "Human capable, unexpected," Kale smiled. "Exactly. That's why we're going to show them, not by brute force, but by being smarter, faster, and more human than they ever expected." He looked out at the stars beyond the scrapyard, thinking of the countless challenges ahead. The galaxy was vast, full of danger and opportunity alike. But with Vera by his side, Kale knew he had a chance, not just to survive but to make his mark and humanity's mark on the universe. In that quiet moment, Kale realized something important. He was no longer the hated ex-pilot, the failure everyone remembered. He was a pioneer, a leader, and with a living, Defiant ship at his side, he was ready to face whatever came next. Tomorrow, the galaxy would see a human and a ship unlike any it had ever encountered. And Kale, for the first time in years, felt unstoppable. The galaxy was vast, but Kale and Vera were beginning to make a name for themselves. Word had spread about the stubborn, defiant alien ship piloted by a human who had survived impossible odds. Some saw them as a curiosity, others as a threat. But Kale didn't care about fame or fear. He cared about one thing: understanding Vera fully and using her extraordinary abilities to prove that humans were capable of greatness. It began one morning in the scrapyard. Kale was running system checks when Vera spoke suddenly. "Threat approaching, larger than Zarathi," she said, her voice tense, almost anxious. Kale's eyes narrowed. "Larger?" he asked. "Fleet, unknown, aggressive," Vera replied. Her lights flickered rapidly and energy pulses ran along her hull. Kale realized immediately. This was no ordinary raid. Whoever these attackers were, they wanted Vera specifically, and judging by the size of the fleet, they would stop at nothing to take her. Kale didn't hesitate. "Get ready, Vera," he said, gripping the controls. "It's time to show them what humans can do." Vera pulsed softly. "Trust, human," Kale smiled. Always. The first wave of enemy ships emerged from hyperspace, sleek and menacing, black and jagged like predatory insects. Kale felt a familiar thrill in his chest. The thrill of combat, yes, but also the thrill of possibility. They were outnumbered, but he had something no enemy fleet could predict: creativity, adaptability, and a living ship on his side. The battle began in the open void, far from any planet or station. Kale maneuvered Vera with precision, dodging plasma blasts and weaving through debris clouds from destroyed vessels. But this fleet was larger, faster, and more coordinated than anything he had faced before. Kale realized they couldn't rely on speed alone. They needed strategy. "Vera, we're going to do something different," Kale said, a spark of excitement in his eyes. "We'll divide them, confuse them, and use every advantage we have: your abilities, my instincts, and the environment." The ship pulsed, lights flickering in agreement. Kale activated hidden systems, channels he had only recently discovered during days of careful exploration. Vera's hull began to shimmer, energy forming patterns that interfered with enemy sensors. The fleet faltered, unsure of their target. Kale guided her into a spiral formation, forcing enemy ships to split their firepower and collide with each other. The maneuver was daring, dangerous, and exhilarating. Kale relied on intuition and knowledge of human improvisation, while Vera responded instinctively, moving as one entity with him. Together, they became a single, unpredictable force. As the battle raged, Kale discovered another hidden feature. Vera could emit an energy pulse that temporarily disabled enemy ship systems. He tested it on a group of smaller attackers, and to his amazement, it worked flawlessly. Engines sputtered, weapons went offline, and the ships drifted helplessly. Kale's grin widened. "You see, Vera," he shouted over the hum of the hull. "Humans think outside the box. They never follow the rules." The ship pulsed in response, almost laughing. Human, clever, unexpected. The attackers quickly recovered, more cautious now. Kale knew he had only bought them a few precious moments. He had to push further. "Let's take this up a notch," he said, activating Vera's full energy core. Lights blazed across the hull, almost blinding in the dark void. The ship's shape shifted subtly, expanding its defensive and offensive capabilities. Kale felt the ship's power respond to his thoughts, almost as if it understood exactly what he intended. Together, they executed a series of maneuvers so fluid and unexpected that the enemy fleet began to falter. Kale's instincts guided Vera through narrow asteroid fields, forcing ships to collide or break formation. He used energy pulses and shield diversions to confuse and disable multiple attackers at once. Each move was precise, yet creative, human ingenuity combined with alien intelligence. Hours seemed to pass in mere minutes. Kale's focus never wavered. He had learned to anticipate not only Vera's reactions but the enemy's as well. They were working in perfect harmony, pilot and ship, human and alien intelligence united in a single legendary force. Finally, the flagship of the enemy fleet emerged, a massive warship bristling with weapons and shields. Kale knew this was the moment of truth. They could take this ship down or be destroyed trying. He tightened his grip on the controls. "Vera," he said, calm but determined, "we do this together. We strike where they least expect it." The ship pulsed in agreement, lights glowing like a heartbeat. Kale guided Vera into a daring assault. They weaved through heavy fire, dodging energy beams and missiles while Vera emitted pulses that disabled critical systems. Kale's strategy relied on creativity and unpredictability, forcing the flagship to react to moves no human or alien fleet had ever executed. The climax came when Kale used Vera's hidden propulsion thrusters to launch a sudden, high-speed strike directly at the flagship's main reactor. The enemy's shields barely held, and the combined power of human intuition and Vera's living systems pierced through, triggering a cascade of energy overloads. The flagship erupted in a brilliant explosion, sending shockwaves through the remaining fleet. The remaining enemy ships, now leaderless and demoralized, fled into hyperspace. Kale and Vera drifted for a moment, catching their breath. The void was quiet except for the soft hum of the ship, pulsing like a satisfied heartbeat. "You human worthy," Vera said softly. Kale laughed, a sound full of relief and triumph. "Worthy, Vera, were unstoppable together. We proved it." Over the following days, Kale explored every hidden system of the ship with Vera's guidance. They unlocked ancient capabilities, cloaking fields, adaptive shields, advanced propulsion that allowed near-instantaneous maneuvers, and even autonomous intelligence modules that could strategize during battle. Vera had once been a discarded, Defiant ship, but now she was a legendary vessel, and Kale had become her rightful partner. News of their victory spread across the galaxy. Former enemies began to respect humans in ways they had never before. Kale, once a hated ex-pilot, was now celebrated not just for his skill, but for his creativity, courage, and ability to form a partnership with a living, defiant alien ship. Together, Kale and Vera became symbols of what humanity could achieve: ingenious, resilient, and unstoppable even when the odds were stacked impossibly against them. Kale stood on the bridge, gazing at the stars. "You know, Vera," he said quietly, "they thought humans were reckless, weak, and predictable. But we showed them something else, didn't we?" Vera pulsed in response. "Human, capable, remarkable." Kale smiled. "Yes, and we're just getting started." As they prepared to leave the scrapyard for the wider galaxy, Kale reflected on everything that had happened. He had once been an outcast, hated and forgotten. Now he had a living, intelligent ship at his side, and together they had faced impossible odds and triumphed. Kale realized something fundamental. Humans were special, not because of brute strength or advanced technology alone, but because of imagination, resilience, and the ability to connect and trust where others might not. Vera pulsed softly, almost like a heartbeat of pride. Kale reached out, resting a hand on the control panel. "This is just the beginning, Vera. The galaxy has no idea what we can do together." The ship pulsed again, lights glowing brighter, signaling readiness and anticipation. Kale grinned. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew they would face them as one, a human and a living ship, defiant, brilliant and unstoppable. And in that moment, Kale understood the truth that had been waiting for him all along. The universe underestimated humans at its peril. For Kale, Varen, and Vera, the galaxy was no longer a place of exile and danger. It was a playground for legends. The stars stretched endlessly before them, and together they would conquer the unknown.